CQ, CQ, CQ. This is the Country Roads Net. CQ, 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 and welcome to the System Fusion Country Roads Net. This is Net Control Station AB8RL, Alpha Bravo 8 Radio Lima. My name is Tom, and I'm located in Scott Depot, West Virginia, about 20 miles west of Charleston, the capital. The Country Roads Net is a directed net and meets on Thursday nights at 8 p.m. for the purpose of fellowship among amateurs, exchanging information, and testing of amateur radio equipment. This net is conducted in the WV Link Room, West Virginia Link Room. The ID number for the room is 46488. This net is provided locally on the UHF repeater 441825, servicing the Charleston, Huntington, West Virginia areas. When checking in, please provide your call sign phonetically. Please give your name and location. Are there any stations that have announcements for the net? Call Net Control now. N4NT, Adam in Bristol, Tennessee. Okay, copy N4NT, Adam, that has an announcement. We'll get to you here in a few minutes. Anybody out there with announcements, call Net Control AB8RL. Okay, at this time we'll stand by for any mobile stations. Any time-sensitive or mobile stations wishing to check in, please call Net Control, AB8RL.
Net Control. Whiskey 8, Romeo, Lima, Golf. Bob, Scott Depot. I'll be in and out this evening.
Whiskey 3, Sierra, Moundsville, in and out this evening.
Okay, copy W8RLG, Bob, who will be short-term. I believe Matt, KE8ICS, Matt, are you short-term as well? Okay, I also copy WD8BXS, Chuck. I believe you checked in. Are you short-term? Okay, I thought I copied KE8ICS and WD8BXS. Okay, any other stations that might be mobile or short-term? Call Net Control, AB8RL.
This is Kilo Golf 8 Alpha India, KG8AI, John in Poca, in and out.
Okay, KG8AI, John, in and out. Thank you for checking in tonight, John. Okay, at this time, we'll move on to check-ins from the local UHF repeater, 441825, located in Scott Depot, West Virginia. So stations within range of that repeater in the Charleston, Huntington area, please call Net Control now, AB8RL.
Net Control. Please check in Kilo 8, Romeo, Romeo Tango 10, on the HT this evening.
Net control, please check in WW8RT, Whiskey 8, Romeo Tango, Steve, in Milton.
Net control, please check in. Kilo Bravo 8, Zulu India Oscar, KB8ZIO Scott, cross lanes.
Okay, I acknowledge K8RRT Tim in Culloden on an HT, sounded very good. WW8RT Steve in Milton, and KB8ZIO Scott in Cross Lanes. Before moving on, do we have any other stations on the 441825 repeater in Scott Depot, West Virginia? Call net control AB8RL. Okay, nothing heard. At this time, we'll take in check-ins from anywhere. Please call net control now. AB8RL, the floor is open.
Net control, please copy November 18th, Mike Tango. And Wheeling, Matt and Lydia, KA8YEZ.
N4NT, Adam in Bristol, Tennessee, getting on the regular check-in list also.
Net control, please check in. KD8A, Kilo Delta 8 Alpha, Tony in Sissonville.
K1WVA, Kilo 1, Whiskey Victor Alpha, Dave in Clarksburg.
N8HQR, Stamen in Glendale.
Net control, check in KE8 ICS, Kilo Echo 8, India Charlie Sierra, Brian and Wheeling.
Net control, check in Kilo Charlie 8, Foxtrot Zulu Hotel, John in Moundsville, in and out.
Okay, let's stop right there. I'll acknowledge the following stations. Let's see, we left off with KB8ZIO, Scott and Cross Lanes. Copied N8YMT, Jay in Columbus. Good evening. KE8YEZ, Matt in Wheeling. KD88, Tony in Sissonville. K1WVA, Dave in Clarksburg. N8HQR, David in Glendale. KE8ICS, Brian in Wheeling. And KC8FZH, John in Moundsville. I'll stand by for additional check-ins for the Country Roads Net. Call net control now, AB8RL.
AB8RL, this is N8HQR in Glendale, West Virginia. The name is Stan, Sierra Tango Alpha November.
Net control. This is Kilo X-Ray 8 Delta Romeo Alpha, David Delta Alpha Victor India Delta in Rayland, Ohio.
Okay, I did copy N4NT, and I have you, Adam, as number one on the list for an announcement and regular check-in earlier. And let's see, copy N8HQR's Stan. Sorry about the confusion on the name, but I got it corrected. Copy KE8ICS Brian and KC8FZH John in and out, and KX8DRA David in Ohio. One last standby for regular check-ins, and we'll move on to the announcement. Then we'll get on to the discussion question of the evening. This is AB8RL and the in the Country Roads Net standing by for additional check-ins anywhere. Okay, nothing heard. This time we'll go up to the top to Adam, N4NT. Adam, go ahead with your announcement for the net, AB8RL.
Okay, yeah, I just wanted to let everybody know that I got YouTube up and running tonight for the net, so if you want to listen to it later on and see how your audio sounds, or you can go over there and listen to it live, probably a few seconds behind what's actually going on, but not that far. So the YouTube channel is called Ham Radio Zone, and if you type that in, or if you search for Country Roads Net, then it should come right up there. So I just wanted to let everybody know about that. It's N4NT, back to net control.
Okay, N4NT in the net, AB8RL. Very good, Adam. Thank you for the service you provide on those nets. When I was in Florida, Tampa last week, I listened to it on my laptop, and it just sounded crystal clear. It was a real pleasure to listen to the net. Then at the very end of the net, I figured I could log in and send you a text that I was there right when the net was coming to an end. But it worked out really well. It's a fantastic service you provide there. Okay, the topic of question this evening is we're going to talk. I think most nets up until now have talked about field day already. Our local club has talked about field day, and the Bristol groups covered field day. So we're going to move on to a new topic other than field day, and it's going to be low band antennas, particularly antennas for 40 and 80 meters. 40 and 80 meters. I'd like to give us a little rundown as to what kind of antenna are you using. Are you using an end-fed, a long wire dipole, a G5RV? There's a lot of different configurations for low band antennas for 80 and 40, and it would be interesting to see what the consensus of the group is and who's having success with what. So that'll be the question when we go down the list. We will skip over those that were acknowledged that they were out. So we have a fairly decent group here to go down that list here this evening. Let's see. Before we go on with that question, I believe N8YMT. Jay, do you have any announcements for the net? If so, go ahead. The floor is yours. AB8RL.
Why, sure, thank you. I know I got in there late. Sometimes with the upcoming holiday coming up, per se, a lot of my stops are changing time, so it kind of threw me off my clock to realize, hey, there's a net going on. I need to get Columbus in there, but appreciate you letting me get in there. This is N8YMT Columbus over here in Columbus, and I'd like to invite you all to the Ohio link, check in and information every Sunday night, 8:30 p.m. over here, Eastern, and the room number is 40557. That is both on WiresX and YSF for those that get into rooms that have both. But I just figured I'd throw out my usual one, and hopefully everybody had a good field day. I know that was a topic. We did have that topic for our check-in net, and we had some decent turnouts, but Not as many as you would think, given normal field day operations, but there was nothing normal about field day this year. Hopefully it turns out better next year, but I'll send it back to you. Appreciate you letting me delve in there. This is N8YT. Back to you.
Okay, Jay, real good. We got your announcement there. While we got you on, if you work 40 or 80 meters, you have any information on what you use for an antenna? Go ahead.
Well, I guess it depends if I'm running from my house or if I'm running portable. I have an end fed that I use for my portable. It's a single wire that I'm able to throw up off trees and stuff like that. And then I've got a center fed fan dipole that I use for at home stuff. So it just depends on where I'm working it from and when I am on there. I've been a lot of HF lately, but and I didn't get a chance to do anything at home this field day with that. So, but yeah, I'm a fan of both. I guess it all depends on what your particular slant area and installation requires. But I don't know if you're talking portably or at home. But there you go. N8YT.
Okay, Jay. Now I'm talking home base location. The center fed, I take you use at home. How many bands? Since that's a fan, it's a multi-band. How many bands is that antenna for you? Go ahead.
I guess it just depends on the condition. It is a multi-band. I can probably go 12 up to 80. 80 is probably about the best part of the stretch that thing can do. I wouldn't try doing any more than that. But it does well on 80, 40, 20, 15, 17, and 12. I've been on all those with it. I use an LDG tuner on a 450D station.
Okay, now that's a dipole that basically is a dipole individually for each and every band that meet at the center. Is that correct? It's not a single wire antenna, correct?
No, it's an alpha delta. It's got multi-step. It looks, they call it a fan dipole, but it's got like four separate leg or legs, arms, whichever. And the biggest one has coil ends, is where you string it from. But then it does like a step in kind of thing.
Okay, very good. Gotcha. And you also use the end fed as well. Okay, thank you for those comments. We'll go now to the top of the list to Adam, N4NT. Good evening, Adam. And if you operate 40 or 80, what do you use for an antenna?
Well, I just so happen to be standing out here in my backyard looking at said antennas. I've got a couple options that I'm running right now. I built a inverted L that I actually have attached to my chain link fence and have some radio wires running as well, and it does really good. I built it for 160, and it is resonant for part of 80 and 40, and where it's not resonant, minimal tuning. If I'm not running power, I just hit the auto tuner, and I'm good to go. But I can use that antenna on pretty much any band I want to, with the tuner. But like I said, 160 meters, it's pretty much I bypass the tuner and go straight through. And then I've got a off-center fed dipole, which I can bypass the tuner on most of 80, 40, 20, and 10, and the tuner will get it everywhere else. The only problem I'm having with the off-center fed right now is 80 and 40. I get a little RF in the shack. I think I need to get it up a little bit higher and put a balun closer to the shack. I forget the name of the balun that's recommended for those. You can put them, I think, even between the amplifier and the tuner, and that'll help. So for the time being, I use the off-center fed for everything under 40. But those are my two right now. I'm looking to add something specific for 6 meters. I just want to talk to a few more people and see what they've tried and see what they recommend. But I want to get some good hardware in there for 6 meters to make it really effective. So that's what I got, what I'm actually standing here on my patio looking at. So I'll turn it back to net control, this N4NT.
Okay, Adam, very good. Some different antennas there. The 160 inverted L, I know is very, very popular for the 160 operators if you have the space. And you're using it on 80 and 40. And you also have the off-center dipole. I've heard about them, read about them, but I've never tried one, so I know very little about those. But we've added that one to the list. So the next station up is, I would say, one of our local antenna gurus, very knowledgeable of antennas, has made a lot of antennas, and I'm sure he has a lot of words of wisdom for wire antennas for 80 and 40. K8RRT in Culloden from AB8RL.
Well, Tom, a lot of pressure right there for sure. This is K8RRT. Tom, am I making it into the machine okay from right where I'm at here?
Yes, you are. Correct. Go ahead.
All right, very good. I have used a number of wire antennas here and 40, and for the longest time, many years, what I ended up using, due to I didn't have the ability to get, and I'm talking about working DX, I didn't have the ability to get the dipoles high enough on 40 and 80. I just, there was too much loss. It was more, they were better for 500, 300, 500, 750 miles away. That was a good application for those. So, for over the years, I went to vertical antennas on 40 and 80. And, with above ground counterpoise, 2 above ground radials on each one, 2 independent antennas. And they played exceptionally well through the years. And so that's what I used, wanting to work DX in that low angle radiation, was to be able to go with the vertical antennas. Just one thing of note, just a good rule of thumb, that dipole will always beat a vertical if you can get it high enough, because you got the ground gain, and the it just your signal is that much stronger for given amount of power that you're running. So if you're a QRP guy or a 100-watt guy, and you want to have your antenna to be most efficient as possible. So for now, I had built 3 years ago a 90-foot tower, and I have a 2-element 40-meter beam now at 95 feet. And I gave up my 40-meter vertical, which there was several thousand QSOs on that vertical on 40 that played great. And also, since that time, with having the 90-foot tower, with my terrain sloping away from the tower, I've been able to go to a dipole. So now on 80, I have gain on the 80 meters with the dipole. And comparing them A-B switching between the vertical and the dipole has done a good job now that I can get it high enough. So that's been my experience with wire antennas. My favorite multi-band wire antenna is a ladder line fed dipole, and that's I have one of those hung up here still, and I enjoy that. So I enjoy wire antennas, and there can be a lot of fun, a lot of accomplishment made with cutting a wire and getting it up in a tree. There's a lot of fun to be had very inexpensively. So that's my 2 cents down here in Culloden, West Virginia. So I hope everyone has a blessed evening. Back to you, Tom. AB8RL net control. This is K8RRT.
K8RRT in the net, AB8RL. Thank you very much, Tim, for all that information. You added 4 more antennas. One question I have for you, the ladder line fed dipole. What is the, and that's a multi-band antenna with, I believe, 450 ohm ladder line to a tuner. I think that's a balance tuner if I'm right. But what is the length of the antenna? Go ahead.
Well, for this particular application, it will cover 80 through 10 meters. And with the tuner I'm using, it's a little tight on 10 meters, but everywhere in between, it tunes very, very well and very, very easily. So the total length of the antenna, each leg is 66 feet, so it's 132 feet, which basically it's an 80 meter ladder line fed antenna that can be tuned on the other bands. And with the ladder line, there's virtually no loss of radiated power on the other bands. Unlike a coaxial cable, there would be just a bunch of RF that's circulating back and forth on that coax, and it just creates a lot of loss and a lot of attenuation on both ends, whether as well as transmit. So the ladder line is very forgiving, and if you can, for DX, if you can get high enough, it's very competitive. It's like anything, like I've always been told, just get it up. Just get it up in the air, get it up in the tree, get it up on a pole, just get it up in the air and plug it up and have fun. And I've been real pleased with that antenna.
Okay, very good. And one just last question. What would be a minimum height you'd want to have a dipole up if you can get it that high, at least a minimum, over?
Well, here comes that C word, compromise. Everything's a compromise in what we do. And it just depends on the band. It depends on the band that you're trying to work, the minimum height. I mean, on 80 meters, you want to try to get it as high as you can so you don't have you'll have a low angle radiation with your ground gain. But heck, I've seen guys run 80 meter dipoles, or these ladder line fed dipoles. I've seen them run them at 60 feet, 50 feet, and they do well with them. So it just all depends on the band. You can cut these for 66 feet, 33 feet each leg, and it'll do 40 meters through 10. So you just do what you can do for what room you got to do it in, and that's the main thing. Just make it work for your piece of land, your part of the world.
Okay, Tim. Well, I know the wire verticals that you have made for 80 and 40 have worked very, very well. Your 2-element 40-meter beam's a killer, and you're doing real well with the wire antennas. So all your antennas seem to work very, very well. Okay, next on the list is Steve in Milton, WW8RT. Steve, what do you use for 40 and 80? AB8RL.
Good evening, Tom and everyone on the net. WW8RT, Steve here. It's kind of hard act to follow. Only thing I have here for 40 and 80 is the 6BTV Hustler ground-mounted vertical antenna with 32 in-ground radials. Doesn't do too awful bad on 40. It's very, very compromised on 80. But you can make a few contacts. It has a very narrow bandwidth on it. And that's the only antenna that I have here for all bands, as a matter of fact, for 10 through 80. So with that, I'll turn it back over to net control.
Okay, WW8RT, AB8RL, another different antenna for 80 and 40, multi-band vertical antenna with 32 radials, so that should play quite well for you, Steve. I know you work a lot of DX with that antenna. Geez, we got a lot of antennas being used already on 80 and 40. Not one common one for everybody. Everyone has a great idea for an antenna. Okay, let's move over to Matt. And let's see. No, let's see. Next on the list is Scott in Cross Lanes. Scott, I know you're new to 80 and 40. What kind of antenna and success are you having in Cross Lanes? KB8ZIO in the net, AB8RL.
Hello, everybody, and Tom. Tom, I'm still using the G5RV that you gave me, and matter of fact, I probably use it more for 40 meters than anything. I've made some 80 meter contacts, quite a few others, 10 meter. I've just been really happy with it. My limitations are, well, pretty bleak. I only have it 20 feet in the air right now, and that's probably my max that I'll ever be able to get it. Due to lack of trees, lack of property, and dealing with the existence of the other home co-owner. I better be quiet. But I have been looking at the HVU -8. I'm not sure how you say the company name. MALDOL. It's got a pretty decent price tag of $339. I've thought about that, and then just being able to have something to switch backwards and forth, just to see what I like. But I really don't know. This is doing really well for me. It's really doing well for me. My big issue is just I got 3 mountains around me, and I'm just limited, very limited. But if anything, I will tell you guys is I'm having a blast, and I hope you are too. Other than that, I'm going to turn it back over to you, Tom, and everybody have a safe 4th of July. KB8ZIO.
Okay, KB8ZIO in the net, AB8RL. Very good, Scott. Well, like Tim said, whatever you can do, as high as you can get it, and as stretched out as far as you can get it, based on your property confines, that's all you can do is the best you can. But okay, we got a G5RV on the list for this evening. Okay, next up is Matt and Willing, KE8YEZ, AB8RL. Matt, do you work 80 and 40, and what kind of antenna do you use?
Hi, everybody. I get to see my mom's parents tomorrow, and I get to pet their dog because she has been running off, and their dogs have been running off.
Okay. KYZ. That was my daughter Lydia. Grandparents are, if you want to call them the Outlaws, are coming in tomorrow from just down below Kingwood, and bring the dog with them. So Lydia's happy about that. Let me buy some time. Let's see. Haven't been on HF since we had Lydia talk to Santa Claus on the Santa Claus net, and I think it was on 80 meters. I have a Buckmaster off-center fed dipole that I think does 6 through 80, and used it a couple times on our special event station we have up at Ogilvy Park. Worked real good, and I put it up here at the house. And I got the same problem as, I forget who it is, one of the other stations, getting RF in the shack on 80. And I had a Wyndham up there before, and same problem with that one. I had getting RF in the shack, and I think it took something out of one of the receiver out of one of my dual band radios, but sent it back to Kenwood, and they fixed it without any trouble. But so I just make sure I don't have anything else turned on when I'm on HF, because the vertical for the dual band and the wires all hooked kind of together on top of the pipe on the chimney. That's it. Back to net. Hope everybody has a happy 4th of July. AB8RL on the net. K8YZ. K8RZ.
Okay, Matt, very good. Thank you for your comments. And I hear Tim in there would like to make an injection. So go ahead there, Tim, K8RRT, AB8RL.
Thanks, Tom. I didn't want to interrupt. Just for the guys that are limited, that got a small lot or no trees. One thing that Steve, WW8RT, he had a low multi-band antenna that, one thing is on the operator too, and Steve is a excellent op, and he can take a shoestring and make contacts, but his antenna was very low, and a lot of just the same comments, RF in the shack, had issues on 80 meters and that type of thing, and then there's an answer for that, and Steve did that answer. He put up a ground mounted vertical. That's all he could put up was a ground mounted vertical at this time, and we put an efficient ground system underneath it. And Scott, ZIO, and any of you other guys, that's your answer. And getting an efficient antenna that you can keep RF away from the house, and if you can't get it high enough, those ground-mounted verticals are very competitive, and as long as you have a good radio field under them. And that's one thing Steve did, took a lot of pains in building his antenna, and it's been night and day difference since he put his vertical up, and he's had a lot of success. And Steve runs 300 watts, 500 watts, and he's been busted some big pileups on the DX end, and his antenna's doing a fine job. So those that have a small footprint, there's answers out there, and you can put up a good efficient antenna if you don't have a pole or don't have a tree. There's other ways to go. So wanted to get that out there, Tom. I'm short time now, and good evening to everybody on the net. And 73 K8RRT.
Okay, Tim, K8RRT, AB8RL. Thank you for those additional comments on Steve's setup there. So we got another new antenna, the Wyndham and the off-center dipole, but RF in the shack. Maybe one thing to consider for RF in the shack is a RF isolator. I don't know if they call them a ballot or not, but I know there's many manufacturers of they call them RF isolators, and that is to prevent the RF from coming back down the coax there. Okay, next on the list is Tony in Sissonville, KD8A. Tony, what's your antennas for 80 and 40? AB8RL.
AB8RL in the net, KD8A. My one and only HF antenna is a K8RRT ladder line fed dipole in inverted or cut for 80 meters and in inverted V configuration, and it has done me a really good job. I got to say, those are absolutely fantastic antennas. I've worked 80 through 10 on it, and even made a handful of contacts on 160 with it. I was able to get it to tune. It's kind of out of its element, obviously, at 160, but I was able to work a few contacts there as well. So it's done me a fantastic job, and I really love that antenna. KD8A, back to net control.
Very good, Tony. KD8A, AB8RL. We have a check mark here for the ladder line fed dipole. Cut for 80 meters. With the tuner, can work 80 through 10 meters. Another antenna for everyone to consider. Okay, let's go up to Clarksburg today. K1WVA. Good evening, Dave. Thanks for checking in. And if you operate HF, what do you use for 80 and 40?
AB8RL in the net. This is K1WVA, Dave, located in Clarksburg. Tom, would you believe that I have absolutely no antennas in the air? I took them down back about the 1st of April for some expected construction work, and that is, it was delayed until this week. So hopefully I can get some antennas back in the air pretty soon. And with Wires X, I'm operating PDN direct mode where you don't need an antenna. But what I do have is a Mosley 4-band antenna. I've got a Comet rotatable dipole, which, well, that one hasn't been in the air for a couple of years. And I have a high-end in-fed wire antenna that works good, and a couple dipoles. That's about all I've got for the net. So it's been interesting listening to the different antennas. So this is K1WVA, back to net control.
Okay, very good, Dave. Your rotary dipole that you did have, was it for 80 or 40 or higher frequencies?
40, I forget what though, it was a Comet, and I forget the nomenclature. It's in a storage building, has been for a couple of years.
Okay, very good. I do know they make, rotatable dipoles for 40 meters. They're like one big element. I don't know about 80, but I know they make them for 40, and that's another choice to consider as well if you have a tower to put it on. So we'll add you as with having an end-fed and a rotary dipole there, Dave. Thank you very much. Okay, we'll take one more comment, then we'll stand by for additional check-ins. Next on the list is Stan in Glendale, N8HQR, AB8RL. What do you use for 40 and 80?
Okay, net control. This is Stan, N8HQR. It's been a while since I've been on 40 and 80. It probably about, I want to say the 80s and 90s. And I used to operate, I don't have any antennas up right now, but getting ready to retire and thinking about putting a beam up and putting everything back up again. But I used to use a inverted V of about 40 feet with ladder feed line. And I don't know the name of it. It's been such a long time, I don't even have it anymore. But it had 3 wires on it that had spacers in it. And the longest wire went to my poles that held it up in the yard when it hit the base, on the downside of the inverted V part of it. And the other ones were held together by spacers. And it was a good antenna. I talked all over the world on it. Talked to North Pole, New Zealand, all over the place on that with 20 meters anyways, but 40 and 80 it worked well too. I had no problems. Talked to my uncle down in Florida all the time on 40 at night, amongst all the noise.
Okay, Stan, very good. You're the first to mention the word inverted V. That's another popular antenna that's been around for many, many years. So hopefully you can get some antennas back up and get active again for sure. Okay, at this time we'll take a standby here. We got just a couple more comments, but we'll take additional stations to check in to the Country Roads net. Call net control AB8RL standing by.
This is Kilo 4, Kilo Zulu Romeo 10 in Hurricane.
N8KOQ.
Please check in KE8MGA, Mike and Charleston, in and out, no comments.
Okay, copy the following stations: K4 KZR, Ken in Hurricane, N8 KLQ, and KE8 MGA Matt in Charleston, in and out. N8 KLQ, can I have your name and QTH, please?
Yeah, name is Jim, Juliet India Mike, and the QTH is New Martinsville, West Virginia.
Okay, very good, Jim, in New Martinsville, West Virginia. Thank you for joining. We'll be with you here in a second. Okay, next on the list here is KE8ICS Brian. I know you work 80 and 40 or one of the two. What do you use for an antenna? AB8RL.
Oh, good evening, Tom. Everybody else on the net there. I hope everybody had a great day there. I have a G5 RV strung up in the tree there, and it works pretty good. 80 through 10. I got it. I use an ICOM 718 with an LDG IT100 auto tuner that's specifically made for the radio, so it works pretty good for that. Other than that, that's about it. That's only about 3 years into it, so this is my first experience, first HF antenna, so I have really never tried any of the other ones there. So other than that, everybody have a great 4th of July. This is KE8 ICS back to net control.
Okay, Brian, KE8 ICS, AB8RL. We got you noted down for the G5 RV. That's two that's being used here on the net tonight, so very good. Thank you for checking in. Okay, next is, let's see, FZH is out. KX8DRA, David in Ohio, AB8RL.
Well, good evening to everybody on the net. I don't do much in HF, I'm sorry to say. I do have a Kenwood 860 something hybrid rig. Last time I hooked it up, it didn't respond. You have to actually tune in set the drive and the plates and all that, and it didn't do anything. I hook it up to a end fed. I have an MFJ tuner that I use, but the radio just didn't do anything. I've also hooked up my rig to a CB antenna that my father-in-law put up years ago on a 30-foot tower, and I've worked 10 meters, but that's about all I have done. So, sorry I have nothing to add. Back to the net. Good evening, everybody. Have a great weekend. KX8DRA.
Okay, David, KX8DRA, AB8RL on the net. Very good. Thank you for your comments. Have a great 4th of July weekend up there. Okay, good evening to Ken, visiting in Hurricane. Nice to talk to you last night. And back at your home QTH, well, let's see. I believe you said you're a technician, so you probably are not working 40 and 80. I don't know. But anyways, glad you joined the net tonight, and over to you for your comments. And as you've heard, we've been talking about 80 and 40 antennas. K4 KZR Hurricane from AB8RL.
Good evening, AB8RL in the net. This is K4KZR Ken, visiting my mother here in Hurricane. My usual QTH is in Arlington County, Virginia, right outside of Washington, D.C., real close to the Pentagon. And yes, I am a technician, so no, I'm not working any of the bands I don't have privileges for. But I do have privileges, as everyone knows, a small slice of the 10-meter band, and I actually have been doing work within that small slice. What I've been using is a pair of ham sticks born a dipole and connected to what's called a chameleon quad hub. Allows you to connect up to 4 ham sticks to form 2 dipoles on 2 different bands. And I've been able to make some contacts with that, mostly ground wave local, but a couple times I was able to reach out to Puerto Rico and Texas, kind of random. But I was going to take my general test, and then all this COVID stuff happened, and trying to get in to do one of the online tests just hasn't worked out so far. We hope soon in my part of the world to be able to start doing tests again as Virginia goes into phase 3 or is in phase 3 right now. So that's all I've been able to do. Just great to listen to all of you. A lot of good tips. Been kind of taking a few notes for when I do get my general and I can expand out a little bit. And I hope everybody has a great 4th of July. This is K4KZR, back to net control.
K4 KZR in the net, AB8RL. Very good. Well, you've made another announcement of another antenna, which I know folks have used, and that's the ham sticks that are configured as a rotatable dipole. They're smaller in nature, good for portable use, but some use them for base station operations, and some use them for portable. That's another antenna to consider if you're restricted for space. The ham sticks. Okay, over to Jim in New Martinsville. N8KLQ. Do you work 80 and 40? And if so, what antenna do you use from AB8RL?
This is N8KLQ, Jim in New Martinsville, West Virginia. Yes, I work HF. I work 80 and 40. All of them really, but 80 and 40 most of the time. And I just got a simple old dipole up, cut for 80 meters, maybe a little bit long, I don't remember, but anyhow, it will tune 160, but it's tight. It's not very efficient, but anyhow, I just use just a simple old 80-meter dipole. Back to net, N8KLQ.
Okay, very good, Jim. N8KLQ, AB8RL. I don't know of a dipole that never works, so they're always they're always a good choice. Cut to the frequency or as close to the portion of the band you like. They'll always do well. Before we take additional check-ins, I'll mention what antennas I've used on 80 and 40. I had a 80-meter vertical for 80 meters that Tim K at RT built. It's a pretty big antenna, 60-some feet up and 2 radials above ground, 60-some feet in each direction. It performed very, very, very well. It broke and came down, and it really takes some special technology there to launch an antenna, 70, 80, 90 feet up on the top of a tree, so I have not got it back up yet. In its place, I have used an 80-meter dipole. For 40, did have a DX Engineering, I think they called it a Thunderbird 4030 vertical. It was a 40-meter vertical with a 30-meter coil. It was mounted above ground about 12 feet with 2 above-ground radials. And it performed very, very well as a DX antenna, but it was mounted to a tree stump that had rotted, and recently I had it cut down, so it's not in operation at the current time. In the field day this past weekend, I had to get some kind of antenna up because I just had some trees cut down in the backyard, but I still got a few good ones. So I put up a G5RV, which I've used in the past. And it is up in the center about 35, 38 feet. And I do have an RF isolator that feeds it and seems to be performing quite well right now. So with 5 watts on FT8, I've had signals, being heard in Europe. But it was a simple, basic antenna just to get on 80 and 40 fairly quickly. It does require a tuner. Some radio internal tuners will work. I may also have to then use an external tuner if I use the amplifier. So we got 3 G5RVs on the net here this evening. But anyways, we had a long list of a variety of different antennas, and more antennas than I could have probably wrote down if I was asked how many different antennas do you know of for 40 and 80. I would have probably only came up with about half of these. So there's a lot of ideas for 80 and 40 meter antennas that everybody has some good ideas on. Okay, let's stand by for any additional check-ins to the Country Roads Thursday night net. Call net control, AB8RL. DXS recheck.
Kyle and Hurricane.
Okay, Okay, I did get WD8BXS Chuck in there, and NY8S Cow in Culloden. Do we have any additional check-ins calling out?
Net control. Please check in Kilo Echo 8, Lima Sierra November, Randy in South Charleston.
Okay, copy KE8LSN, Randy in South Charleston. We're down near the bottom of the list, so we'll get your comments here in a few minutes. Good evening to Chuck, WD8BXS. Good evening, Chuck, and what do you use for 80 and 40, AB8RL?
Well, good evening, everybody. I was sitting down to dinner earlier, so I was in and out, but I come back down and you're still chatting, so I'll chat as well. Good to hear everybody. I have it's called an 80-meter super loop. Got it from Radio Works. It's a pretty good sized loop antenna. It's an upside down diamond, I guess you'd call it. Delta loop. And it works. I can work all bands on it. Does extremely well on 80 and 40. And I also recently just put up a 40-meter rotatable dipole. And I'm kind of impressed at how it works. Didn't think it would work that well, but really impressed about that. So that's what I got up here. Back to net control with W88BXS.
WD8BXS, AB8RL. Very good, Chuck. You added another new antenna to the list. A super loop, 80-meter super loop. I've heard of those as well. And also the rotatable dipole. Well, I didn't realize there was this many antennas for 80 and 40 that could be considered. Seems like everybody has one of the something different here on the group. But thank you for your comments. Good evening to Kyle in, I believe, Culloden, NY8S. Kyle, do you have anything up for 80 and 40? And if you do, what do you have? AB8RL.
NY8S. I don't have anything for 80. I tried building an 80-meter dipole just for NVIS, but evidently my antenna analyzer was not a fan. It said it was resonant, but my radio disagreed. And then for 40, I have a tuned 40-meter dipole. It's an inverted V at about 34 feet up, and that's about all I've got for those two bands.
Okay, NY8S, AB8RL. Very good on the 40-meter inverted V, Kyle. That should do you quite well out there for a lot of contacts. Have you had good success with it? Over?
Yeah, the 40-meter dipole I've had some really good success with. It's a little bit hard on the really far away DX. I've got every continent. Well, I guess I haven't got Antarctica yet, but I've gotten European Russia, but I've not gotten Asian Russia or Japan, but I've had Australia and New Zealand, so I think it does pretty good for being up at 34 feet and not at half wavelength like it needs to be. Over.
Okay, very good. NY8S, AB8RL. When I got into ham radio in 1968, my antenna was a 40-meter dipole, but it was fed with 300 ohm TV twin link cable, they called it back then. It was about a half an inch in width, and that's what the old transmitters in those days would tune about anything. Okay, good evening to Randy in South Charleston, KE8LSN. Randy, do you work 80 and 40? And if so, what do you use for an antenna? AB8RL.
Good evening, AB8RL, everyone on the net. No, sir, I do not have an antenna up for either. I have really enjoyed this conversation. I've learned a lot. Of course, it probably will lead to many more questions. I do hope to get something up sometime before summer's over so I can try to participate in 40 and 80. But that's all I have right now. Thank you very again. Thank you for all the information. Back to you, sir.
Okay, Randy, KE8LSN, AB8RL. When the time comes to put up an antenna, check your local resources. A lot of knowledge here in the local valley. Okay, before summarizing, let's stand by for any additional check-ins for the Country Roads Net. Call AB8RL. Okay, nothing heard. Does any stations have any final comments or input for the net? Call now, AB8RL. Okay, nothing heard. Let's see. For a quick rundown, we've had end-fed antennas, center-fed fan dipole, inverted L, off-center folded dipole, vertical wire verticals, two-element beams, 80-meter dipole, ladder line fed dipoles, G5 RVs, 6PTV multi-band vertical antenna, a Wyndham antenna, a Buckmaster off-center dipole, an end-fed rotary dipoles, another inverted V, G5 RV, ham sticks, a super loop. Well, I tell you, the antennas are wide and varied for your selection for 80 and 40. Okay, at this time, I certainly want to wish everybody a happy and safe 4th of July holiday, and welcome everybody back again next Thursday for the Country Roads Net. Before closure, we'll take one last standby. AB8RL net control for last check-ins.
WABXS with a comment.
AB8RL for the West Virginia Fusion Information Net. I certainly want to thank everybody who checked in and provided all the information on the antennas you're using for 80 and 40. Certainly welcome you all back again next Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This net is now finally closed with 23 participating stations at 9:02 p.m. local time. This is AB8RL saying net control saying 73s and good night.